King E7 of Wei in SuperBet Poland 2024 Rapid and Blitz. This is round number 13.
Hello, my fellow chessers.
I'm gonna show to you, my fellow chessers, the chess game of Magnus, Carlsen, and Wei in SuperBet Poland 2024 Rapid and Blitz, round number 13. So let's begin from the top. Wait, let's begin from the top. So let's begin on knight f3. Ooh, knight f3. g5 and then g3. This is King's Indian attack, so let's continue the game. G6 and then bishop g2, bishop g7. This is King's Indian attack, double fianchetto variation. So castle's kingside, e5, and Wei grabbed the opportunity to control this side, as you can see, my fellow chessers. So let's continue the game. d3 and then knight c6 and then e4 and then d takes e4 and then d takes e4 and then queen g1 or queen takes g1, my fellow chessers. So let's continue on. Rook takes d1 and then bishop g4, pinning the knight on f3, and then c3 and then knight f6. The idea of knight f6 is attacking the pawn on e4. h3, bishop e6, and then knight g5, attacking the pawn, the bishop on e6. So bishop d7, knight d2, h6, knight f3, castle's queen side, rook e1, bishop e6, bishop f1, and then knight d7, and then knight b3. What's the idea of knight b3? To go here, so a5, and then bishop e3, and then a4, and then knight bd2, bishop f8. Mistake. The best continuation on this position is what? F5, my fellow chessers. So let's continue the game on bishop f1, bishop f8, and then b4, and then a takes b3, a takes b3, and then bishop c5, challenging the dark square bishop of Magnus Carlsen on e3. So bishop takes c5, and then knight takes c5, and then b4, and then knight d7, knight c4, f6, and then rook a8, knight c b8, and then rook e a1, and then knight b6, attacking the rook on a8, and then knight takes b6, and then c takes b6, and then knight h4, attacking the pawn on g6. So let's continue the game. Bishop f7, knight g2, king c7, knight e3, knight c6. Mistake of Wei. The best continuation on this position is what? Bishop e6, my fellow chessers. So let's continue the game on knight c6. Mistake. Rook a3. Mistake of Magnus Carlsen. The best continuation on this position is what? Ooh, sorry. So the best continuation on this position is rook takes d8. That's the best continuation on this position. So let's continue the game on rook a3, rook d7. The best continuation on this position is knight e7. So let's continue the game on rook d7, bishop c4. The best continuation on this position is rook a8. Ooh, this is the best continuation, my fellow chessers. So let's continue the game on bishop c4, and then bishop takes c4, knight takes c4, b4, b5, and then knight e3, and then knight e7, rook a8, rook h d8, and then knight g4 attacking the pawn on f6, at the same time attacking the pawn on h6, f6 and h6. So knight g8 defending the pawn, the two pawn. So rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and then king f1, then h5, and then knight e3, and then knight e7, king e2, and then f5 mistake. The best continuation on this position is rook c8, my fellow chessers. Ooh, what? But this is the best continuation. So let's continue the game on f5, and then f3 mistake. The best continuation on this position, my fellow chessers, is rook a5, attack this side, attack the b5 pawn. So let's continue the game on f3. Why? Example, my fellow chessers. Takes, and if we take this, we have take this. And example, if to defend this, what? What? Ah, okay, wait. So example, defend this, we have c4, my fellow chessers, and if it take, as you can see, attacking the pawn on e5. So let's continue the game on the real game. f3 defending the pawn, obviously, and then h4, and then g takes h4, and then rook h8 attacking the pawn on h4, obviously. So e takes f4, and then g takes f4, and then rook g1. Ooh, controlling this file, my fellow chessers. And then king d6. What if we take this? We have rook g7, my fellow chessers. And then we have, if you put the king on d6, we have this, my fellow chessers, as you can see. What's the best move? Ah, this, my fellow chessers, and then this, and this, as you can see, my fellow chessers, 4. That's why we choose the king to d6, because he see over the board, my fellow chessers. So let's continue the game on king to d6, and then rook g5 attacking the pawn on f5. Rook takes h4, and then rook takes f5. Sacrifice, my fellow chessers. Rook takes h3, my fellow chessers. Why? If we take the rook, as you can see, my fellow chessers, fork, my fellow chessers, and then one piece up Magnus Carlsen here in this position, my fellow chessers. So let's continue the game on rook takes h3, rook f6, and then king c7, rook e6 attacking the knight on e7, and then knight c6, and then knight g5. Check, my fellow chessers. And then king d7, and then rook g6. Ooh, preparing for here, controlling this file, g5, and then rook h1, and then knight f6, and then king e7. Mistake of Wei, my fellow chessers. The best continuation on this position is what? King c7 only, my fellow chessers. King c7, that is the best continuation. So let's continue the game on that. King e7, knight e4, good move, and then king f7. King e7 to king f7 is mistake of Wei. And then rook f6 check, and then king e7, rook g6, king f7, then rook d6. Oh, I don't like a draw. Magnus Carlsen in his mind. So let's continue the game. Rook h2, and then king d3, and then rook h1, and then rook d7. Wait, my fellow chessers, what if he put here, and we have rook d5 attacking the pawn on b5? Ah, that's no, you cannot defend this to go here, because the pawn on e5 is free, as you can see, my fellow chessers. That's why we choose the rook h1, and then king d7, then king e6, and then rook takes b7, then king f5. What? King f5? That is the blunder of Wei. And then the best continuation on this position is rook d1, my fellow chessers, and then king e2. As you can see, Wei is losing in this position. But as you can see, my fellow chessers, king f5, and then rook g3, my fellow chessers. Rook g3 is the best move, because as you can see on king on f5 check, at the same time attacking the rook on h1, and then black resigns the game, my fellow chessers. Why? If you continue the game, for example this, and we have knight takes h1, and then Magnus Carlsen is one piece up, rook on b7.